Don't forget about the rummage sale now.
Try not to do it too fast.
That picture is in the Adrian paper there.
Oh, yeah.
That one.
Let's see if I can get closer to it. Try to do it smooth.
Those are certificates for crossing the equator.
Oh, okay.
One's from the Wasp and the other one from the Santa Fe.
The mask. Sorry. Don't know anyone that wants to buy a clock or a lamp. It's one that you. I gotta go sit down. I've got sciatic. Oh, that's really bad.
We're comfortable, aren't we? Today's June 23rd, and we're going to interview Mr. Leslie Peck. And I'd like you to start by saying your name and when you were born and where you were born.
Leslie Peck, Hillsdale, Michigan, and 5124.
Okay. Do you know anything about your birth? Did anybody ever tell you anything about your birth or what happened during your birth? Or
Well, it was at home. Of course, in those days, everybody was born at home.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, my mother and father had just moved, and she was just about to have me, and my dad wasn't there, and finally he came home, and the doctor was in another town. They had moved away from that town.
Mm-hmm.
And he had to scout around trying to find a doctor, and she was having labor pains, and she told me about that a few times.
Uh-huh. And how many brothers and sisters did you have?
2 brothers.
Were you the oldest or youngest?
Yep, oldest.
You were the oldest, and then what are your 2 brothers' names?
Well, there was Roland and Levain, but Levain just died here recently, and Roland, he died a long time ago.
Yeah. Do you remember anything about your grandparents?
Quite a bit. Let's see, my maternal grandparents lived on a farm and the lake, and I spent the summers out there working. And
What kind of work did they have you do?
well, help with thrashing. In those days, of course, they didn't bale any hay. Everything was thrashed.
What's thrashing really mean? I don't think I know what that means.
Well, the day before you do it, the guy comes down the road with a big steam engine, the big belt pulley on the side, and pulling a thrashing machine, and gets set up for the next day to start. They bring the grain had been already cut and put up in shocks. They called it to dry, so it would dry. Then we went out with wagons and hauled that in and threw it into the thrashing machine, and then the grain would go one way and the straw would go another, and then you'd end up with the grain in bags and the straw in a big straw pot.
Did they have a lot of people that helped when they were doing things
Well,
like that
quite
on
a
the
few,
farm?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, about probably 6 or 8. And putting up hay was another thing that's similar to that. You didn't bale a hay in those days, and just drive a wagon with a flat bed out into the field, and I was about 10 years old probably, and drive that out there with 2 horses pulling it, and ride down the rows that had been raked up before, and then people would throw it on, and you start out on the wagon at the bed level, and when you got done, they kept throwing it on, and you had to keep going up with the hay. And man, was that ever scary! But then drive that back to the barn, and then they had a contraption that came down with a big hook, and hooked onto it, pull it up the hay, and load, put it on each side in the barn.
That was a day's work.
Yeah, it sure was.
Did Grandma feed you well after a day's
Oh,
work?
that was the best part. They would, the ladies would kill all the chickens that quit laying, and then have some big dinners.
Yeah.
So it was up to the chicken, a little incentive there to keep on laying.
Did they have a lot of animals on their farm?
Oh,
They had chickens and-
well, yeah, the chickens and pigs and cows. Grandfather had about 5 cows, I think he was milking.
Yeah.
And then, of course, across the road was his lake, or part of it was his. And he had 6 or 7 or 8 boats there, the fishing boats that he rented out.
Oh.
I spent my summer there taking care of the boats and working on this other stuff.
What was the name of the lake?
Round between Reading and Allen.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Do you remember your grandparents' names?
Well, this particular pair was my mother's folks,
Uh-huh.
and of course, but their name was Peck. My dad and mother were both Pecks when they married.
Oh my goodness.
No relation, I hope, but they were. My grandfathers were from. One was from Ireland, one from Scotland. So
And when did they come to the United States? Do you know anything
I'm
about
not
that?
sure about that. I never got into that
Okay.
really much.
All right. Do you remember your father's parents?
Yeah,
Spending time with them?
yeah. They all 4 of these were either in Reading or around there,
Okay.
Michigan. And my dad's folks, he had a monument shop uptown, right about half a block from the business district. We got a picture of it here in the book.
Oh, wow.
And
Maybe you can hold it up for us.
I don't know.
Hold it right up
I'm
in
just
front
trying
of
to
you.
see which one it's that one.
Okay.
And that's my grandfather, my dad's father, and me. He had a horseshoe cord out in back of the monument shop.
Neat.
Cool.
Looks like you spent a lot of time with your grandparents. That's
Oh,
a
yeah.
fun time.
All summer, you know, 'cause but that picture there, that house in Reading, that's 1909 that was taken.
Uh-huh. Wow.
And my dad, he would have been, gee, I don't know, 100 and, way over 100, and he's sitting there in the porch. My grandfather was back there in the shop.
Mm-hmm. It's a nice picture of the house, too.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know anything about how your parents met?
In this little town, mine,
Mm-hmm.
you know, they both went to school there, and they're both named Peck.
Yeah.
And
That probably gave him something in common right away, huh?
Yeah, my uncle said she was quite pretty and that he was quite handsome, so they're bound to meet.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the way it works.
yeah. So where did you, you went to school, where did you go to school at?
Well, wherever Dad worked, it was in Reading and Hillsdale, Coldwater. And then we moved to Adrian, and that was it.
Okay. What kind of work did your father do?
He worked in the monument shop too,
Okay.
stone cutter. Only he worked down here and that's why we came to Adrian. Was Maple City Granite Company was down there by the Armory.
Mm-hmm.
They've torn that building out now. Anyway, they got him to come down there.
And what kind of things did he do with the granite? He did the
Put names of,
carvings. And,
yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. And were there special tools that you used to do
Oh,
that?
yeah, sure. Yeah. My grandfather, he didn't get into too much special tools, but my dad did.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Compressors and chisels and sandblast.
And what year did you move to Adrian?
1934.
1934. And where did you live when you moved to Adrian? What street did you live on?
Well, at that particular moment, we lived in Coldwater.
Uh-huh.
But about a year, we only lived there a short time. And my dad worked at in Hillsdale at the when Ray Herrick was there before he moved to Tecumseh,
Oh, okay.
and started Tecumseh Product.
Mm-hmm.
He was in Hillsdale with a foundry at the time. My dad worked for him, but when Herrick moved to Tecumseh, my dad went back to his monument.
Mm-hmm.
It was a labor of love for him.
And he liked it a lot, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you came to Adrian, and then you went to school in Adrian. Where did you go to
Mhm.
school?
First school was New McKinley.
Do you remember any of your teachers' names or any of your classmates' names?
Miss Saulers and Miss Libbs, the only two I remember.
Uh-huh. And
Miss Saulers just died a couple of years ago, and I think she was 103.
yeah, that was Edith
Yeah.
Sauter.
Miss Libbs was a little younger, and I talked to her sister here, and she said that she was still alive down in Oklahoma or Texas or something.
Oh, okay. And how did you get to school?
Bicycle. Yeah.
You rode your bike every day, did
Yeah, even then when it was snowing.
you? What do you remember about your school days? What kinds of things did you do at school, and what kind of
Well-
lunches did you have, and what did you do for fun?
Well, I remember about school, they came through with the safety patrol. They started that,
Uh-huh.
and they came through with a belt to wear, around. And they had me get up on at a gathering there. They had me get up on the stage and model that belt. I'll never forget that.
So they make you captain of the safety patrol,
Yeah, probably. Yeah. Yeah.
and that was when you were in grade school.
Yeah, fifth grade, fifth and
Fifth grade.
sixth.
And
Fifth
what-
and sixth there, and then down to the old junior high for 7th, 8th, and 9th.
Uh-huh. And what was the old junior high school like? What kind of subjects did you have, and do you remember any of your teachers?
None. I visualized caught 2 or 3, but I have forgotten their name.
Uh-huh.
Been a long time.
Did you like the
Miss
junior
Sherman.
high? Miss Sherman. I remember her.
Do you?
I had her when I was in high school. English teacher.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, she must have been elderly when you got her.
She was. I think she retired the year after I had her.
Wow.
My dad said he had her too when he was in school.
Miss. There was a Miss Mackey up, but that was up at. I think that was up to New McKinley.
Oh, okay.
She was a music teacher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And then you went through the high school in Adrian?
Yeah, I went down to 7th, 8th, and 9th downtown, and that school has been torn down a number of years ago. You know, the old junior high.
Yes, it was. And that was the high school then?
Well, just up through the 9th.
Just up through the 9th grade.
Yeah.
Did you have to pay to go to high school when you went?
Pay?
Yeah, pay. Did you have to pay for school, going to school? No. Okay,
Well,
I didn't know.
not that I remember.
I didn't know if you did or not.
Things were too, that was during the Depression.
Uh-huh. Tell me about the Depression. How did that affect you as a child?
Well, real young, I didn't really notice too much, you know, like when the products moved out of Hillsdale, didn't mean a whole lot to me. I was about 10.
Mm-hmm.
But I did notice kids were no longer around that I had gone to school with or played with.
Yeah.
And but depression was kind of bad on people.
Mm-hmm.
Not too much money floating around, and
Your father still had his job?
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Did your mother work outside the home?
No, not until the war started.
And then what did she do?
She worked down at Herd Lock. They were making some part for, I think, an anti-aircraft shell or something.
Mm-hmm. And how old were you when the war started?
Well, when the war started, I was 17. And let's see, that was December 7th. I signed up, I volunteered the next Sunday after that.
Mm-hmm.
And Adrian didn't have a Navy recruiter, and we had to either go to Toledo or Jackson. And another fellow and I went to Jackson and signed up over there.
Were you still in high school when you decided to?
No, I had quit.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I was just got out of the CCs when the war started. And you probably know what that was.
No, I don't.
Civilian Conservation Corps.
No, I don't know what that is. You have to tell me what that is.
Well, every once in a while they have an article in the Adrian paper about
Uh-huh.
it. They had some CC camps here. Only a bunch of us signed up. It was like being in the Army almost.
Oh, okay.
And we signed up here in Adrian and got on the train and went up to East Tawas, up north, you know where that is.
Mm-hmm.
And out in the woods there was a CC camp. So,
And what did you do when you were out there?
well, various things, but mainly up here in East Tawas, that we had a nursery at the edge of town, and we raised pine trees, about 3 inches high, 2 inches high, and then sent the saplings all over wherever they needed them. You know, the CCs was all over the country,
Oh, okay.
and a lot of them were building bridges and building buildings, and just so happened we were up there fighting fires and building trees, or growing trees.
Mm-hmm.
And
They reforested all the land that had been cut for lumber.
Okay. And I do remember that now that you say that.
did
Yeah.
you remember the CC?
I remember, yeah. Well, I don't remember.
No, but well, they quit in about. Let's see, they started in 1933, probably right after Roosevelt got in, and well, they quit. It was to put young fellas to work, to get them some money and get them off the street, and so it was pretty good.
Okay.
I got transferred to another camp over near Ludington, out in the woods over there.
Mm-hmm.
Tell him your job about the doctor when he was in CC.
Yeah, tell us about that.
And well, let me see. Just before I got transferred over there, I had broke my finger, and they took me off of work detail, and they had an officer. These were Army officers that run the camp, but forestry department ran the work. That's the way it was.
Yeah.
And so I went over to Monday. I went over to the building where they had the recreation and things, and there was an officer there. Couldn't get anybody to play pool with him, and so I volunteered to play pool with him. But this finger was in a cast. It stuck way up.
So you probably couldn't bend it or anything either.
Yeah.
Really. Yeah.
And so I says, well, I don't know as I can play the way my finger is. Well, he says, why don't you try it? But I knew that he was the kind of the guy that gets awful mad if he got beat. But anyway, we played, and I beat him pretty bad. And I didn't want to, but
Even with a broken finger.
yeah. And everybody was, there were guys sitting around the room there watching, and they, oh boy. So about 3 days later, my name was on the list to be transferred to Walla Halla over near Ludington.
Uh-huh.
But anyway, then I couldn't work yet because of that finger. And the doctor, they had a doctor that came, he took care of 5 CC camps, and he was at one each day.
Mm-hmm.
He came to ours on Friday, and we had a cute little hospital there and everything, and about 4 beds in it. And one day he asked me if I'd help him, and I said, well, yeah, sure. So ended up being a permanent job. So I was the new guys that came in called me Doc, but the older guys they called me Quack. And but that was fun.
It sounds like you had a lot of fun and
Yeah.
you got some good work done too.
Yeah. I was trying to think what we did over there. Maybe it was just forest fires. I don't remember us building anything.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Well, you decided to join the Navy and you went with a friend. Do you remember your friend's name that you went with?
Bob something.
Bob somebody. And why did you decide on the Navy for your, other than some other, like the Army or Air Force? Or...
Well, everybody I knew was going in the Army.
Uh-huh.
Well, they didn't have a Navy recruiter here, and that's one reason.
Uh-huh.
But he wanted to go in the Navy, and I didn't really care either way. And
Uh-huh.
so I went with him over to Jackson, and we joined over there. And that was on the Friday before, after Pearl Harbor, and so we stayed there all night with her, and then with his aunt, and then got trained right into Detroit, the Federal Building, and went through a series of physical and the whole bit. It lasted about all day.
Oh, did I?
Well, it did last all day.
Mm-hmm.
Because we were sworn in about 2 minutes after midnight on Sunday night, so that went in the records as on it being on Monday.
Mm-hmm. And you left right then and there.
You bet. We got on a train, come right back. Just a coincidence, came right back through Adrian and on to Chicago and Great Lakes.
Mm-hmm. So what'd your family think about you joining up and going into the military?
I don't remember too much. Of course, I had just met Dorothy, and I don't know whether she was too keen about it, but about 4 months we met before that.
You had just met. How did you meet Dorothy?
Through her brother.
Uh-huh.
And
What did you do on your first date?
first date,
Yeah.
I think we went to the Lunaway County Fair.
Oh.
I think so. I think the fair was on the
Uh-huh.
20th of September, 41.
So you knew Dorothy's brother,
Mm-hmm.
and he introduced you to his sister.
Mm-hmm.
And then you leave for the military.
Yeah.
And then where did you go right away from the military? You went.
Well, I went to boot camp for 28 days. And then in the middle of the night, they woke us up and says, pack everything and be on the train in half an hour. They backed the train right into the base there, and it was 20 below zero.
Oh my gosh.
But, of course, we figured anywhere we'd get transferred, it'd be warmer than that. So.
You were ready to go. Huh?
Yeah, I was back quick.
So where did they take you?
Norfolk, Virginia.
Oh, okay.
That's a huge, one of the biggest Navy bases in the country.
Mm-hmm.
And got aboard that aircraft carrier, the Wasp. Well, that was a sight.
Had you ever seen anything like that before?
No, I don't know if I even ever seen a picture of one.
It was huge. What did you think when you first saw it?
First saw it, I thought it was just a funny looking building. Then as we got closer, I could see it was a ship.
Uh-huh.
It was tied to Pier 7 there in Norfolk.
Mm-hmm. Does that have something to do with its? Isn't it numbered somehow?
The ship?
Yeah, wasn't it Wasp? And then there was like letters.
CV7, yeah, but that CV7, that's carrier. V is aviation. Seven is the 7th aircraft carrier that we had.
Okay.
Had nothing to do with the
The
pier
dock.
number.
Okay. Okay. And then how did you board the ship? I mean, I've never been on a ship that big. I wouldn't know
No.
how you even get on the ship.
Well, they have a ladder goes right up the side and from the deck down.
Uh-huh.